Hey guys, tonight we drift into a myth so low stakes, so delightfully pointless, you might forget you're supposed to care. It starts not with a war, not with a monstrous serpent or a thunderbolt, but with a very bored sun god, and a turtle. Picture it, the sun is doing its thing, high above the scrubby hills of ancient Greece. You squint. It's hot. Too hot. You're standing in the sandals of Apollo himself. God of light, prophecy, poetry, and, apparently today, having absolutely nothing better to do. Your golden chariot is double parked behind a cloud. You've been playing the same harp riff for centuries straight. You've sung all your own praises, and even the muses have left your group chat on red. So, naturally, you wander down a sun-bleached path, between olive trees that look suspiciously like they're judging you. You spot something moving in the dirt. Small. Lumpy. Not glowing. It's a turtle. Just a regular, painfully average, moss-shelled turtle dragging itself through the dust like it's got nothing to prove. It doesn't even notice the god of prophecy is staring at it like it's a new Netflix series. You squat down gracefully, because you're divine, and observe. The turtle blinks. You blink. Somewhere in the back of your celestial mind, a new melody flickers to life. But it's not harp music. It's different. Hollow, twangy. You hear strings. You don't know yet, but your life is about to be completely upended by this reptilian vibe machine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in from somewhere cozy, drop your location and your local time in the comments below. I love seeing where you're all drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trail the turtle like a divine stalker. It scuttles obliviously toward the shadow of a cypress tree. Meanwhile, high above, the other gods are probably watching with that mix of amusement and second-hand embarrassment reserved for parents at a middle school talent show. But this isn't where the story starts. Because while you're following that turtle, somewhere across Mount Cyllene, a newborn god has already set things in motion. Hermes, the literal infant of Maya and Zeus, has just popped into existence. No time to crawl, he's already scheming. Historians still argue whether Hermes was a symbol of youthful ingenuity or just a cautionary tale about giving toddlers divine powers. Either way, he's barely unwrapped from his cosmic swaddle when he decides to leave his cave, craft some sandals, yes, sandals, and go commit a felony. Meanwhile, you, Apollo, have found a flat rock. The turtle is basking, eyes half-lidded like it's in a spa. You pick it up. It doesn't resist. You flip it. Still no resistance. This is either extreme chill or extreme obliviousness. You run your fingers along its shell. The texture is bumpy, ancient. There's a kind of symmetry to it. A natural rhythm. If you squint, and gods squint very precisely, you can almost see where strings might go. Back on the mountain, Hermes is mid-heist. He's stolen your cattle, yes, your sacred cows, the ones with golden hides and annoyingly melodic moos. He's reversed their hoofprints, walked them backward into a cave, and wiped the dust with a handful of wildflowers. Babies first cover up. Here's a fun fringe tidbit. Some myths say Hermes invented the lyre before stealing the cows, to help himself fall asleep. Others say he did it after, to bribe you. Honestly, both sound like something a toddler criminal mastermind would do. Anyway, you still haven't noticed your cows are gone. Instead, you're tracing the edges of the turtle shell with your thumb. In your mind, the sound of plucked strings is becoming clearer. You don't know it yet, but you're about to inherit an instrument born from both divine mischief and reptilian inconvenience. A shepherd walks past. You nod, still holding the turtle. He nods back, completely unfazed by the gleaming god having an existential moment with a tortoise. Such is the chill of the ancient countryside. Let's pause and consider a mainstream historical fact. The lyre, as we understand it today, was central to Greek music and education. Every respectable Athenian boy was expected to learn it, kind of like the ancient version of mandatory piano lessons, but with more string blisters and fewer recital cookies. Your fingers twitch. The turtle's shell hums against your palm. The world quiets, just you, the creature, and the flickering idea of something new. Somewhere distant, Hermes giggles. Not baby giggles, steaming giggles. You don't know it yet, but he's about to hand you the very object you're imagining, and it's going to change everything you thought music was. And possibly distract you forever. But for now, you sit, the sun dipping behind you, as you dream of a sound no one's ever heard. So, while you're contemplating how to hollow out a turtle like it's your next big art project, let's shift our divine camera to that squishy, squirming newborn across the mountains, Hermes. You'd think being born in a cave to a nymph mom would encourage a bit of humility. Nope. Hermes enters the world with full-blown confidence and zero interest in nap schedules. The moment he blinks open his suspiciously wise baby eyes, he's already cooking up trouble. Now, some say he was born just after dawn and by midday had invented fire, sandals, and deceit. Not bad for someone still teething. You, of course, are still miles away, completely unaware. Back in that cave, Hermes is shoving moss under his armpits, weaving reeds into a little baby belt, and most famously, slapping together a pair of sandals made from bark and cowhide. Fringe fact, some versions say these were the first ever winged sandals, a prototype of his later fashionable foot choices. But why sandals? Because Hermes needs to travel fast. He's decided, without anyone's permission, least of all Zeus, to sneak off and steal some cattle. Not just any cattle. Your cattle. Blowing, mooing, melodically divine beasts who've been known to harmonize at sunset like a bovine boy band. Now, here's where things get absurdly clever. Hermes doesn't just walk over and lead the cows away. He reverses their tracks, literally. He leads them backward, hides their hoofprints, and walks himself away in those freshly invented sandals so lightweight, they barely leave a trace. You have to admit, for someone who can't even hold his own head up yet, he's pulling off Ocean's 11 in a diaper. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth is a veiled allegory for the invention of tracking and misdirection in warfare, or just another reason to never trust an infant with godly powers. Back to the scene. Night's falling. Hermes has dragged the cows into a secret cave in Arcadia. He ties them up, yawns dramatically, and gets bored. Because, of course, baby geniuses get bored fast. So what does he do next? He finds a turtle. Yes. That same turtle you, Apollo, are currently obsessed with from afar, Hermes already found, killed, and, you might want to sit down, hollowed out. Using sheep gut, reeds, and divine craftiness, he stretches 7 strings across the shell and plucks the very first song out of its poor, confused little body. And just like that, the lyre is born. Fun fact. The lyre's design stayed weirdly consistent for centuries. Even early versions used animal gut for strings, and archaeologists have unearthed examples with turtle shells as the resonating body. So yes, this part of the myth has roots in actual musical history, even if the whole infant craftsman part requires a bit of divine suspension of disbelief. Hermes strums the lyre. It sounds haunting, twinkly, kind of like what moonlight would sound like if it could hum. He improvises a lullaby, sings about cows and stars and how his older brother is probably going to be so mad. But it's okay, because he already knows how to make it all better. You, Apollo, are the golden boy. You value order, truth, and, above all, propriety. So naturally, your kid brother decided to poke all of those with a pointy stick in one afternoon. He lays the lyre beside him, wraps himself in a sheep pelt, and falls asleep like nothing happened. At dawn, you awaken to silence. Not just the peaceful, birds chirping kind of silence. A wrong silence. The kind where the cows didn't do their morning harmony, where the pasture is suspiciously empty, and the air smells like a cover-up. You go full dramatic. The robe flares. The rays sharpen. You're storming around the hills like a Renaissance painting with commitment issues. You interrogate shepherds, you sniff the ground, you summon muses for GPS assistance. Eventually, someone mentions seeing a baby. A very bold baby in weird shoes walking away with cows. You don't ask questions. You don't wait. You fly. Meanwhile, Hermes wakes up, stretches, and puts on his "I am a sweet, innocent baby" face. A talent he uses exactly once before ruining it forever. And that's when you arrive. Now imagine, you're Apollo. Golden, radiant, furious. You burst into the cave ready to incinerate someone. And you find this. A baby. Not just any baby. Your baby brother, swaddled, blinking up at you with the exact level of smugness usually reserved for prank YouTubers. Behind him? The cows. All accounted for. Grazing. Chewing cud like nothing happened. And in his lap? A weird little instrument strung with sheep guts and audacity. You don't even know what to yell first. He strums the lyre. You pause. The sound is stunning. Pure. Otherworldly. It hums like stars. And you forget, just for a second, why you were mad. The air shifts. The shadows soften. Even the cows stop chewing to listen. And there he is, Hermes. Possibly still teething, absolutely not sorry, playing the lyre like he didn't just rob you blind. And you? You are absolutely spellbound. You're standing there, Apollo, god of reason, law, poetry, and the sun itself, silenced by a baby. A musical baby. One who's currently plucking notes from a dead turtle like he's headlining the first ever Divine TED Talk. You try to stay mad. Really, you do. But each note from that makeshift lyre floats through the cave like a whispered secret. It's delicate, playful, somehow both precise and chaotic, like Hermes himself. You squint. The strings aren't just vibrating. They're shimmering. You can see the music. It loops around stalactites, dances off stone walls, tickles the cows into a contented trance. Hermes keeps playing like he hasn't just committed divine theft and possibly musical genius. Where did you get that, you demand? He grins with all 8 of his baby teeth. I made it. And that's when you realize, the little gremlin didn't just steal your cows. He reinvented the entire purpose of sound. You kneel slowly, trying not to let your robes billow too dramatically. You examine the lyre. 7 strings. A hollowed shell. Tiny tuning pegs made from bird bone or maybe whittled cedar. Historians still argue what the original lyre's components were. One academic even claimed it was made of human fingernails, which seems more like a heavy metal album cover than a scholarly insight. You reach out. Hermes pulls it back, possessive. Like any good toddler, he senses power and refuses to share. trade, you offer. That gets his attention. Because, while you have every right to smite him, blast of light, bolt of justice, long lecture about cosmic order, you don't. You want the lyre. You need the lyre. And Hermes, criminal mastermind though he is, also wants something, legitimacy. So, the two of you strike a deal. You get the lyre. He gets your cows. Hermes tilts his head. All of them? You sigh. Yes, all of them. He ponders. And maybe a job? A job? Like, a real one. Messenger of the gods. Something with a title. Benefits. You blink. He's been alive for less than 24 hours and he's already angling for a promotion. Zeus would be proud. If he weren't probably face-palming somewhere behind a thundercloud. Fine, you mutter. Messenger of the gods. You've got the sandals for it anyway. And just like that, you both shake on it. The baby gets a divine promotion. You get the most hauntingly beautiful instrument in creation. A win-win, minus the murdered turtle. This is the moment the lyre enters your life. It fits in your hands like it was made for you, because, in some twisted divine way, maybe it was. You strum. Just once. And something inside you clicks. You've always been the god of music. But this feels different. This is no delicate harp or rigid choral structure. This is raw, portable poetry. It can mourn. It can celebrate. It can seduce and soothe and scream. And it does, later, plenty. But for now, you sling the lyre over your shoulder. Hermes kicks his heels back smugly, already writing the first line of his future autobiography. Day 1, got born, stole cows, invented music, got hired. You both exit the cave. The cows follow. The sun rises just a little brighter than usual. Because even though the gods are known for drama and disaster, every now and then, something beautiful slips through the chaos. Mainstream historical fact here, the lyre becomes central to Greek identity. It's used in worship, education, and theater. It's in the hands of poets, philosophers, and mystics. Kids are taught to play as a way to train their souls. The idea that harmony in music could reflect harmony in the universe? Purely Greek, and it starts with this moment. Meanwhile, Hermes becomes a courier of dreams, a guide for souls, and a part-time prankster with diplomatic immunity. He gets statues, shrines, sandwiches named after him, probably. All because he figured out that you can break the rules if you follow it up with a catchy tune. You, on the other hand, retreat to your temple with your new treasure. You tune. You strum. You forget, for just a moment, all your sun duties. Mortals come with offerings, but you're too busy composing the first actual playlist. And the turtle? Well, let's be honest. It got the short end of the shell. But in a way, its legacy lives on each time a string hums, each time a heart stirs. That turtle didn't just crawl through the dust one lazy afternoon. It wandered into the fabric of myth, into every tragic song and lovesick ballad you'll ever write. Fringe tidbit. Some lesser-known myths say the lyre could control emotions, even the winds. That it wasn't just sound, it was suggestion, wrapped in melody. You never quite figure that part out, but you do notice that when you play it, people shut up and listen. And that's enough. So, you lean back in your chair. The sun sets through your temple's open columns. The lyre rests beside you, quiet now. But not silent. It waits. You're not entirely sure when it happens, but at some point, your obsession with the lyre stops being just about the music. It becomes everything. You, Apollo, god of so many things, begin slipping out of important prophecy appointments just to sit under a tree and play. You're the divine equivalent of someone canceling meetings to noodle on their guitar by the river. The muses are concerned. Zeus sends you scrolls with large urgent stamps. You ignore them all. Because the lyre is no longer just an instrument. It's a companion. A mood ring. A mirror. When you're angry, it hisses. When you're aching, it hums. When you're in love, which, let's be honest, is often, it practically swoons. You play until your fingers ache and your temples ring. You've composed an entire sonata about Do, Apollo. And that's when you meet him. Hyacinthus. He's young. Mortal. Gorgeous in that devastating way that makes flowers blush and gods make very questionable choices. You're supposed to be passing through Sparta, maybe delivering a prophecy or judging a poetry contest or reminding mortals that sunburns are a thing. But then you see him, Hyacinthus, throwing a discus like the breeze itself taught him. You stop walking. Your lyre plucks a single note. Unbidden. Soft. Suspiciously romantic. You introduce yourself. He laughs, calls you sir, then winks. A wink, Apollo. You felled giants with less. You stay in Sparta longer than you should. You teach him music. He teaches you how to throw a discus without pulling a divine hamstring. It's domestic. It's dizzying. And it's doomed. Because love, in your life, rarely ends with shared sunsets and coordinated outfits. No, it usually ends with poems carved into gravestones. One day, you're playing the lyre under an olive tree while Hyacinthus practices nearby. The sun is warm. The breeze is lazy. You're halfway through a melody inspired by his laugh when something shifts. The air thickens. You hear the discus spin too fast. The throw is perfect, but the angle is wrong. It bounces. It curves. It hits him. Square in the temple. There's a sound like breaking pottery. Then silence. You run to him, lyre forgotten. Kneel beside him. He's still breathing, barely. His lips twitch into a smile. Sorry, he whispers. Wasn't watching. You hold him. You call on every healing art you know. You summon herbs, prayers, even that one trick involving owl feathers and moonlight. None of it works. He dies in your arms. There's a silence afterward. Long absolute. Even the birds stop. And then, something blooms. From the blood-soaked ground, a flower unfurls. Deep purple. Petals curled like whispered secrets. You name it hyacinth, for him. Mainstream historical detail, the Greeks believed the hyacinth flower was born from Hyacinthus's blood. His death was commemorated annually in festivals of grief and music, proof that myths, even tragic ones, live on through ritual. You carry the lyre to the mountaintop. You play a dirge so haunting, the winds pause to listen. You play until your hands bleed, until the stars blink uncertainly above you, until even Artemis sets aside her arrows and weeps. Fringe tidbit, some say the lyre's strings snapped from grief that day. Others say they simply played the perfect note, so resonant, so pure, that they've never quite sounded the same since. You return to Delphi changed. The temple feels colder. The muses quieter. You still play, but something's missing. a kind of shimmer, a kind of hope. You begin writing songs in a minor key. People notice. Mortals start carving your face next to the hyacinth, not the sun. Statues show you not just radiant, but aching. Your music deepens, gains a sorrow, a beauty you never had before. Historians still argue whether this myth was a metaphor for fleeting beauty, mortality, or simply the divine cost of love. But for you, Apollo, it's just one truth even gods can break. And sometimes, all that's left is music. You try to move on. Really, you do. You travel. You prophesy. You hum half-finished tunes and pretend they aren't about someone whose name still makes your throat tighten. But Olympus waits for no god's heartbreak. So when you hear that another instrument has entered the chat, something new, something different, you raise an eyebrow and lean in. Turns out, the forest has been busy again. This time, it's Pan. Yes, Pan, the goat-legged, wild-eyed, extremely outdoorsy deity who smells like pine sap and plays music like he's trying to make trees blush. He's invented a new sound. And it's not just music. It's odd, breathy, hollow, lonely. Like the sound of wind through reeds or heartbreak in the language of deer. You're intrigued. So you follow the rumors, as one does when you're a heartbroken god trying to distract yourself with woodwind gossip. Eventually, you find him. Pan, perched on a mossy rock, surrounded by butterflies and half-dazed nymphs. He's holding a strange collection of reeds bound together with vine. It looks like someone tied together a handful of straws and decided to call it art. And then he plays. The notes are raw, unrefined, not elegant, like your lyre. But they feel something. They wobble into the air like homesick birds. And suddenly, you understand why the trees lean closer. You sit beside him, arms crossed, trying not to look interested. What do you call it, you ask? Syrinx, he says. Named after her. Her? Ah. You know that tone. That vibe. That I turned a love story into a musical instrument energy. So Pan tells you the tale. There was a nymph, Syrinx. Beautiful, elusive, allergic to commitment. Pan fell in love, or at least something very loud and persistent that he called love. He chased her through forests, across streams. She ran, of course, because let's be real, the man has goat legs and boundary issues. Just as he caught up, she cried out to the river gods. Save me. They did. Sort of. They turned her into reeds. Pan, distraught but still weirdly romantic, took the reeds, cut them, bound them together, and made the first pan flute. So every time he plays, it's like she's still with him. Or trapped forever in a low-budget love song. Potato, potato. Fringe tidbit, this myth led to actual instruments being crafted from river reeds. Ancient panpipes have been found in burial sites, suggesting that people saw music as a way to hold on to something, even in death. You listen. You nod. And don't say it out loud, you kind of get it. Because what is your lyre if not a grave marker with strings? You ask Pan to play again. He does. The sound is different this time, sadder, softer. Maybe he's thinking about Syrinx. Maybe he's just showing off. Either way, it stirs something in you. You pick up your lyre. The strings feel heavy. Familiar. You pluck a note. Then another. Pan joins in. It's not a song, exactly. It's a conversation. His breath, your strings. His reeds, your rhythms. It's clumsy and beautiful and slightly out of sync, but it works. Birds hush. Trees still. Somewhere, a deer pauses mid-chew, possibly confused. You play until the sun dips behind the trees and the shadows start whispering. Then you stop. Pan grins. Not bad. You raise an eyebrow. For goat music. He laughs. And in that moment, it hits you, music isn't just divine order. It's not just math and symmetry and the perfect chord progression. It's also longing. Wildness. Broken things trying to speak. Mainstream historical note. In Greek culture, Pan's flute and your lyre represented two sides of music: rationality and instinct, civilization and nature. The panpipes were rustic, emotional, often associated with shepherds and common folk. The lyre was elite, formal, used in education and temple ceremonies. Together, they shaped a full spectrum of ancient sound. You leave the forest quietly. The pan flute echoes behind you. And for the first time in a long while, your heart feels less shattered. Not whole. But not bleeding either. You hum a new melody. Something minor. Something wild. Maybe it's time to let the lyre breathe a little. You return to Delphi with new ears. Everything sounds different now. Where before you heard structure, measured beats, exact intervals, you now hear textures. You hear the ache in wind chimes. You hear longing in birdsong. You hear Pan, Syrinx, Marsyas. Even that baby Hermes, with his smug little grin and gift of chaos wrapped in strings. You pluck your lyre. And it doesn't fight back. It seems to lean with you now, respond to your hesitation, your hush, your shift in mood. The instrument hasn't changed. You have. You, Apollo, who once treated music like a proof to be solved, now start leaving in the mistakes. You bend notes. You play out of time. You improvise. And people notice. One evening, you're playing by the temple steps when a group of travelers stops. One of them claps out of rhythm. Another hums off key. You don't correct them. Instead, you lean into it. You let the song loosen. It becomes something warmer, rougher, alive. Later, one old woman approaches. I've heard you play 100 times, she says, but never like this. You nod. Because you understand now, music isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Then, word reaches you from far off. A shepherd. Mortal. Possibly tipsy. Claims he's been inspired by the gods to craft an entirely new instrument using nothing but wax, reeds, and whatever was lying around. He calls it the yawns. You raise an eyebrow. The yawns is strange. 2 pipes. 2 tones. You have to blow into both at once. The sound is piercing, almost nasal, with a reedy insistence that demands attention. Think kazoo, but existential. You hear one played for the first time in Athens. The crowd is bewildered. Some clap. Some leave. One man swears it summoned a storm. Historians still argue whether the yawns was an actual crowd pleaser or just something ancient bands used to torture audiences into submission. But what's clear is, the Greeks loved musical variety. You don't mind the competition. In fact, you're curious. You summon the shepherd. He arrives nervous, clutching the twin pipes like sacred scrolls. I call it the voice of the wind, he says. You play it. It squeaks. He panics. It's better after wine. You smile. Aren't we all? But after some coaxing, and yes, a little wine, you get it. The yawns isn't meant for melody. It's for motion. It drives. It pulses. It was born to make feet move, to summon dances and stampedes and rituals where nobody knows the steps but everyone ends up sweating. It's the opposite of your lyre. But it belongs. Fringe tidbit: in Greek theater, the yawns often accompanied tragedies, adding atmosphere. Some historians believe the eerie double tones mimicked grief, two voices crying at once. You bless the yawns. Not because it's elegant, but because it's honest. That night, back in Delphi, you look up at the stars and play both instruments, the lyre and the yawns alternating between the two. One soars. The other stumbles. One weeps. The other insists. It's not a duet. It's a dialogue. And suddenly, you understand something else. You've been the god of music all this time. But music has never been yours alone. It belongs to the hills, to the wild things, to mortals with rough hands and rougher hearts. To babies, to goats, to lovers turned into flowers. To flute players who challenged you. To nymphs who ran from it. To shepherds who thought wax and straw could talk to the heavens. And somehow, they do. Mainstream fact: by the classical period, music was everywhere in Greece, part of education, religion, theater, even warfare. But no two sounds were ever alike. Just like no two players ever were. You strum your lyre once more. This time, soft. No flourish. No perfection. Just a single, clear note. It rings out into the night. The wind catches it. And something, somewhere, listens. Now that you've got the lyre, you'd think things would settle down. Peace, quiet, a little music under a fig tree. Nope. Because the next morning, you, Apollo, stroll down to your sacred cow paddock, ready for a stress-free serenade, and notice something strange. The cows are there, technically. They're munching. Lowing. But they seem off. Like they've seen things. Like someone's been telling them bedtime stories about infant larceny and musical blackmail. You narrow your eyes. You didn't just lose your cows for a day. You lost trust. And if there's one thing a sun god hates more than overcast skies, it's realizing he's been outwitted. So, you do what any rational deity would do: you storm up Olympus and drag that smug baby to court. And by court, we mean Zeus' thundercloud-flanked dining room. It's part courtroom, part family dinner gone wrong. The furniture floats. The nymphs pretend not to eavesdrop. Athena's in the corner pretending to read. You present your case: my cows were stolen. He reversed the tracks. He lied. He laughed. Hermes, chewing on what looks suspiciously like a divine teething biscuit, shrugs. Prove it. You sputter. I saw the cows. But, he says, did you see me? The room gasps. Even Hera perks up. And here's where it gets wild. Because instead of yelling or zapping or banishing someone to a star, Zeus leans forward, strokes his beard, and chuckles. Did he hurt the cows? No. Did he return them? Yes, but did he invent something extraordinary while doing it? You glance at the lyre on your back. The strings seem to hum nervously, like they know they're Exhibit A. Zeus raises an eyebrow. Then I call this innovative conflict resolution. You're stunned. Hermes claps his little hands. Athena snorts into her scroll. This moment is peak Olympian family politics. Justice? Fluid. Logic? Optional. If you bring enough flair and invention, you can basically rewrite the rules. Historians still argue whether this myth reflects how Greek society valued cleverness over brute power, or if it's just a divine shrug at parental favoritism. Hermes, sensing momentum, pulls out the lyre and begins to play. Again. And the room melts. Even Ares looks dreamy-eyed. Dionysus tries to harmonize using a wine jug. Artemis just nods slowly like she's hearing stars. The music diffuses everything. No one remembers the cows. No one even remembers the crime. What they remember is the sound, the way the air bends around it, the notes that seem to brush against the back of your mind and whisper, "It's fine. Everything is fine." You sigh. This baby. This tiny chaos goblin. He's going to be a problem. But right now, the music is beautiful. And you hate that you love it. So, instead of pressing charges, you make it official. "I'll take the lyre," you declare. As payment. Hermes, magnanimous in his victory, nods. Done. Zeus claps. The gods cheer. The muses begin drafting ballads. And you, Apollo, walk out of Olympus slightly dazed, somewhat callous, and officially the first ever recipient of musical hush money. This, friends, is how the gods do justice. Mainstream historical note: in actual Greek society, trials weren't decided by charm, usually. But the myth mirrors a cultural truth: clever speech and persuasive artistry were highly prized. The power of rhetoric, performance, and invention? That's what shaped politics and philosophy. Hermes is less a baby and more a symbol of the silver-tongued rogue, the courtroom showman, the trickster who always walks away clean. And you, well, you start playing. At first, it's clumsy. You pluck too hard, too fast. The lyre buzzes in protest. But then, under a fig tree outside Delphi, something clicks. You tune the strings. You close your eyes. And it begins. Melodies that rise like dawn mist. Notes that weave through tree branches, bounce off stone, settle into the hearts of birds. The mortals gathering nearby stop talking. They lean in. You play about light and wind, about your missing cows and the smugness of infants. About golden things lost and golden things gained. The lyre listens. It learns. Soon, people start copying you. They carve their own lyres, wooden ones, mostly. They ask you to bless them. You do, when the music's good. When it's not, you smile politely and pretend to be asleep. This is your new obsession. The cows? Forgotten. The toddler court case? Ancient history. All that matters now is the music. Fringe detail: one oddball Roman writer claimed that Apollo's lyre could change the weather. That certain songs could draw in rain or part the clouds. You try it once. Play something moody under stormy skies. Nothing happens, but a rainbow appears later, and you decide to take credit. Because let's be honest, the lyre deserves it. It's not just an instrument. It's a turning point. You've gone from god of poetry to god of performance. From symbol to sensation. And that turtle? Still dead. Still iconic. It's been a while since the whole cow heist by baby incident, and you, Apollo, are finally feeling like yourself again. Radiant. Focused. Maybe just a little bit dramatic, but who isn't when they've invented music? You spend your mornings tuning the lyre and your evenings composing melodies that make trees lean slightly in your direction. Even the nymphs are humming your tunes now. Birds start chirping in minor keys, and one very confused goat has begun tapping its hooves in rhythm. But let's not pretend everything is zen and harmonious forever. This is Olympus. Somebody always ruins the vibe. Enter Marsyas. You're lounging in a grove, mid-sonata, when whispers start to drift through the grapevines. Have you heard about the satyr? He plays the flute. Thinks he's better than Apollo. Better than you. You pause mid-phrase. A bird drops out of the sky from sheer tension. Marsyas, you're told, is a woodland satyr with goat legs, a wine problem, and far too much confidence. He found a flute in a ditch, or, depending on the myth, a god's trash. That flute? It belonged to Athena, who tried playing it once, saw her face puff up in a pond reflection, and chucked it in disgust. Fringe tidbit: some ancient sources say Athena cursed the flute to bring doom to whoever played it, because beauty standards in mythology are apparently brutal. Marsyas picks it up, shrugs, and starts to blow. Turns out, he's good. Really good. Soon, the hills echo with breathy, wild melodies. Dancers abandon lyres. Forest creatures form jam circles. One particularly enthusiastic squirrel starts his own fan club. This is unacceptable. You, Apollo, god of civilized music, can't let a hairy party beast with a hand-me-down instrument dethrone you. So you issue a challenge. A musical duel. You versus Marsyas. Lyre versus flute. Class versus chaos. Word spreads faster than Dionysus at an open bar. Gods, mortals, and a deeply confused donkey gather in a clearing. The stage is set. Historians still debate whether this duel was symbolic of shifting musical values, structured versus emotional, order versus impulse. Or maybe it was just the ancient version of a rap battle with more tree bark and fewer microphones. The duel begins. Marsyas goes first. He plays the flute like he means it. His cheeks puff, his hooves stomp, and his eyes sparkle with pure mischief. It's wild and raw and beautiful in a way that makes people sway without knowing why. You nod politely. Then you play. And it's not just music. It's divine. Your fingers barely brush the strings and the air turns golden. Notes spiral like sunbeams through olive branches. Listeners fall to their knees. One guy faints, face first into a fig tart. Round 1, tied. But this is Olympus. You're not here to tie. Let's raise the stakes, you say, adjusting your laurel crown like a true main character. We each must play our instrument upside down and sing at the same time. Marsyas blinks. He's holding a flute. Flutes, famously, are not meant to be played upside down. Or while singing. Or, frankly, in a logic contest with a sun god. He tries. He fails. The sound that comes out is somewhere between a hiccup and a goose mid-panic. You, meanwhile, flip your lyre effortlessly, strum, and sing like the sunrise itself. Round 2, checkmate. You win. Everyone claps. And then, things get dark. Because instead of a handshake or a bow, you, let's say, overreact. Some myths say you flay Marsyas alive. Others say you tie him to a tree and let nature take its course. A few gentler versions claim you just strongly scolded him and banned flute music for a century. But the majority? They agree it didn't end well for the satyr. Mainstream historical fact: this myth was used as a cautionary tale in Greek education. Don't challenge the gods. Don't overstep your station. And definitely don't bring a flute to a lyre fight. Still, even as the clearing quiets and the last flute note fades, something about Marsyas lingers. A wildness. A reminder. Because even though you won, there's a tension now. The lyre is beautiful, but it's also exact. Controlled. And some part of you can't shake the memory of that untamed music, the kind that didn't care about rules or symmetry. You walk home with your victory ringing hollow. The lyre hums at your side, loyal, lovely, and perhaps just a little smug. And in the forest behind you, the wind whistles a tune you didn't write. You try to forget Marsyas. You really do. You tell yourself he was arrogant, foolish, melodramatic. You say it while plucking soft melodies under fig trees, while composing odes to sunlight, while letting mortals worship your music like it's ambrosia for the ears. But sometimes the forest hums when you're alone. And it sounds a little bit like that flute. You bury yourself in the lyre. Not just in songs, but in the meaning behind them. You begin composing hymns to reason, to harmony, to the sacred math of music. Pythagoras, yes, the triangle guy, would later claim you inspired him to explore how intervals work. Apparently, plucking strings of different lengths creates pleasing tones. Wild, right? Mainstream historical note: Greek music was deeply mathematical. The idea of harmony of the spheres, that celestial bodies moved in musical ratios, sprang from this divine obsession. You didn't just invent music, you gave it purpose. But let's rewind a bit, because the next chapter of your lyre journey starts not with notes, but with a deal. You're playing on a cliffside, trying to ignore a particularly persistent echo, who, in myth, is probably a nymph in disguise, when Hermes appears again. No cows this time. No schemes. Just sandals and sass. I made you the lyre, he reminds you, clearly fishing for credit or maybe a performance slot at the next godly banquet. And I made it famous, you say, without looking up. Fair. But I've been working on upgrades. Maybe you want to trade? You laugh. What could you possibly offer me? Hermes raises a brow. I don't know. Ever heard of the Syrinx? And here's where it gets weird again. Because apparently, Hermes has been hanging out with Pan. Yes, that Pan, the goat-legged forest god who gets distracted by butterflies and once tried to romance a tree. More on that later. Together, they've invented yet another instrument. And you, being who you are, suddenly find yourself in the middle of another musical deal. But first, a formalization. You go to Olympus again and get Zeus to ratify something that's been true since the turtle got hollowed: you are now officially the god of music. Your title includes divine rights to all things harmonic, lyrical, melodious, and vaguely poetic. Hermes gets the invention credit, sure, but you get the performance rights, the licensing deals, and most importantly, the lyre itself. It's yours. Forever. And to celebrate, you play. Oh, do you play? Temples echo with your songs. Kings invite you to perform at weddings. Seas calm. Crops grow. One temple goat gives birth mid-hymn and the baby goat bleats in perfect pitch. Probably coincidence. But you take the credit. Even mortals start copying you, clumsily carving their own lyres. You visit one town where a poor farmer has tried to build one out of driftwood and horsehair. It sounds awful. But his intent is pure, and the muses insist you bless it. You strum a few chords. His eyes well up. It sings, he gasps. It mostly wheezes. But hey, art is subjective. Fringe tidbit: one rare vase shows you teaching mortals to play using gestures instead of words. Scholars think this may be the earliest depiction of a kind of musical notation, a silent choreography of the divine. You start giving lessons. Sort of. You show up unannounced, play a phrase, and vanish in a flare of sunlight. Classic you. And then, one day, you meet a girl. Well, not just a girl. A mortal. Beautiful, brilliant, doomed to be the muse of your most tender songs and your deepest regret. But we're not there yet. Right now, you're just a god with a lyre, a few too many feelings, and a growing suspicion that no matter how many songs you write, something is always missing. So you sit beside the sea. The waves lap in rhythm. The sun sets like it knows you're watching. You pluck the strings, softly. And for the first time in a while, you don't think about Marsyas. Or Hermes. Or who invented what. You think about the turtle, the dumb, plotting creature who wandered into myth and accidentally changed the world. You owe it everything. Well, everything but the cows. So here's the thing they never tell you about being a god of music: sometimes you get punished for it. Not because of hubris this time. Not because of a satyr duel gone wrong or because you played too many encores in a row. No, this punishment comes from a different divine drama, one involving Zeus, rebellion, and you getting caught in the political crossfire. Let's rewind. You, Apollo, shining, string-plucking, poetry-whispering golden boy, just happened to take the wrong side in a celestial spat. The Titans stirred up trouble again. Zeus threw a fit. And you? You said a few things you thought were private. The next thing you know, you're stripped of your godly privileges and exiled. Not forever. Just long enough to learn a lesson, apparently. Your punishment? You become a shepherd. No, not metaphorically. An actual shepherd. In Thessaly. For King Admetus. Who is, quite frankly, very confused when a god shows up and asks for a job. Do you know how to herd? He asks. You flick your lyre case open. I know how to soothe. Turns out, that's enough. So there you are, Apollo, once divine beacon of prophecy and reason, now ankle-deep in sheep dung and playing lullabies to goats. And weirdly, it works. The animals adore you. The flocks thrive. Wolves steer clear, as if your cords are a natural repellent. The shepherds stop teasing you after you casually predict 3 births, 2 marriages, and 1 extremely dramatic lightning strike, which, yes, happens exactly on cue. Mainstream historical fact: shepherd gods and pastoral myths were deeply embedded in Greek culture. Music was thought to calm animals, even influence nature. You weren't just making noise, you were part of the landscape. And somewhere in the hills of Thessaly, something happens. You fall in love. Again. But not with a flower-chested Spartan boy this time. No, this time, it's a mortal girl, Cyrene. Fierce. Wild. She wrestles lions. Literally. You see her take one down with her bare hands and immediately start composing a ballad titled "This Woman Could Break Me in Half, and I'd Thank Her." You follow her. Obviously. She glares. Don't. You smirk. Too late. You spend days trailing behind her like a very shiny stray dog. Eventually, she lets you walk beside her. Mostly because the animals you charm stop chasing her. You talk. She talks less. You play. She listens. And one day, she lets you kiss her. On a rock, under a cypress tree, with a mountain lion sulking 10 feet away like a jealous ex. This time, you think, maybe it'll work. Maybe music doesn't have to end in tragedy. Maybe this love is one you can hold. But fate, as always, has other ideas. Cyrene is a woman of action. Not temples. Not offerings. When you suggest she come to Olympus, she laughs. What would I do up there? You try to explain. You'd be honored. I'd be bored, she replies. Fair. So instead, you make her a realm of her own, a little patch of paradise called Libya. You place her there, safe and free, with forests to guard and wild things to tame. You even send a nymph to do her hair. She declines. Opts for a dagger. Fringe tidbit: Cyrene was later worshipped as a nature goddess in her own right. Some claim she was turned into a tree. Others say she raised your son and taught him how to punch bears. Either way, iconic. You return to Delphi when your exile ends. Back to the temple. Back to the prophecies. Back to the marble floors and incense smoke and mortals asking you to fix their crops. But something's changed. You've held sheep. You've been human adjacent. You've loved a woman who laughed at thrones. And now, even your music sounds different. There's dust in it. A little wildness. You take out your lyre and play, not to impress, not to command, but just to remember. A song for the flocks. A song for Cyrene. A song for the you that learned how to be less perfect. And the notes drift out of the temple and into the hills, where goats still turn their heads when they hear you. Just in case. Time passes differently for gods. Days blur. Centuries hum past like verses in a long, meandering song. But you, Apollo, never forget certain notes. You remember Hyacinthus, his laugh, his fall. You remember Cyrene, her wild hair, her steady glare. And you remember that, for all your divinity, you are still deeply terrible at love. Which brings us to another mortal. His name is Jacinthos in some tellings, Caronis in others, depending on which scribe was tired or heartbroken at the time. But the one that endures, burned into your memory like the sting of the midday sun, is Caronis. She's radiant. A mortal woman, yes, but with that maddening spark, strong-willed, clever, indifferent to flattery. You, of course, fall instantly. She, of course, takes her time. It starts with music. Doesn't it always? You play for her across the sea. She doesn't answer. You play again. She yawns. Eventually, you descend in person, cloak swirling, hair impossibly backlit. You bring her laurel leaves, hand-carved trinkets, like metaphors. She raises an eyebrow. Is this your whole thing? And yet, she stays. Listens. Smiles, sometimes. You begin to hope. You visit often, sneaking away from Delphi, dodging muses, arriving with calloused fingers and a heart strung tighter than your lyre. Eventually, she's yours. Or so you think. Because one morning, a crow lands on your windowsill panting, feathers ruffled, carrying a secret like a broken cord. She's with another, it caws. You freeze. Not because you believe it. But because, somehow, you do. You confront her. She doesn't deny it. There are words. Accusations. Silence. She's carrying your child, your son, and yet, in your rage, your divine pride shatters into something monstrous. You call down Artemis. You don't stop her when she takes the bow. When the arrow flies. When Caronis falls. It happens so fast. Too fast. And the moment it's done, you realize you were wrong. Or maybe you were right, but it didn't matter. Because now she's gone. Mainstream historical note. In most myths, Coronis is the mother of Asclepius, the future god of healing. Her death at Apollo's hand is a cautionary tale about jealousy, justice, and irreversible mistakes. Scholars still argue if Apollo acted from passion or was trapped by divine law. But either way, he regrets it. You do what any grieving god might. You take the body. You slice her open, not with hate this time, but with trembling hands. You reach in. You save the child. A boy. Tiny. Perfect. Wailing in a pitch you instantly know by heart. You name him Asclepius. And then, like any overly dramatic divine dad, you hand him off to a centaur. Chiron, to be specific. Half man, half horse, all wisdom. You trust him to raise your son better than you could. And he does. Asclepius grows fast. Learns herbs, chants, medicine. He becomes the healer gods whisper about when they have a cold they don't want to admit. He brings people back from the brink. Some say he brings people back from death. Which, of course, angers Hades. Zeus, caught in the middle, throws a thunderbolt. Asclepius dies. You scream. Louder than the lyre. Louder than any hymn. It's not just grief, it's injustice now. You descend into the underworld. You demand his return. You don't get it. But eventually, Zeus relents, places Asclepius among the stars. Turns him into the constellation Ophiuchus, the serpent-bearer. A symbol of medicine. Of restoration. You play again, after that. But the songs are slower. They twist and hesitate. Even the muses notice. Call it depth, though you know it's just scar tissue. Fringe tidbit, some ancient physicians would recite hymns to Apollo before surgery. Not to pray for miracles, but to remember that even gods carry regret. That healing comes from pain as much as wisdom. So now, your music shifts again. It's less about glory. Less about showing off. More about telling truths too hard to say otherwise. More about holding pain gently. You sing for mortals in their final hours. You sing for mothers in childbirth. You sing for your son always, always for him. Because music, you've learned, cannot undo death. But it can sit beside it. And hum. By now, you've lived a dozen lifetimes in melodies. You've played for joy, for power, for pride. You've played to win. To mourn. To remember. And somewhere along the way, your music has started to outlive the moments that inspired it. The mortals don't know all the stories. Not the whole ones, anyway. They hum your songs in their fields, at funerals, during festivals. They think of you as the god of music, of light, of order. They don't know about the heartbreak behind those chords. Or maybe they do. Maybe that's why they listen so closely. Still, one question lingers in your mind. What happens to music when no one plays it anymore? The answer, apparently, is this: it rises to the stars. One quiet night, you're walking the edge of the world. The sky stretches above you like dark silk stitched with fire. You play the lyre softly, more out of habit than purpose, and your gaze drifts upward. You stop. Something is different. There, among the constellations, between the swan and the eagle, you see it. The lyre. Your lyre. Placed in the heavens by some divine hand, Zeus? The fates? Maybe even you, in a moment of unconscious longing. It glows faintly. Its strings drawn across the night itself. You stare. Then you laugh, quiet, full-bodied, honest. Because what better fate for your most beloved creation than to rest among the stars? Mainstream historical fact: the constellation Lyra is real. Ancient Greeks associated it with your myth Apollo's instrument, eventually passed to Orpheus, then flung into the heavens after tragedy. Lyra contains Vega, one of the brightest stars in the sky. But in this story, in your story, it's more than a star map. It's a kind of grave marker. A monument to music. To mistakes. To everything you couldn't keep. You keep playing anyway. Below that glittering symbol, you perform for temples and kings, for olive trees and sleeping villages. But you never quite stop glancing up, as if checking whether the stars still remember. One night, a child asks, "Is that your lyre up there?" You nod. Why'd you leave it? You smile. So I wouldn't forget what it cost. And the child says, "But now it belongs to everyone." And you think, yes. Yes, it does. Fringe detail: in some obscure hymns, mortals believed you could hear the music of the Lyre constellation if you stood in complete silence near water on a windless night. They claimed it hummed the sound of forgotten songs. Back in Delphi, the temple grows quieter as the centuries pass. Fewer offerings. Fewer festivals. Mortals change. They build new cities, tell new stories. Some forget your name. But not all. Now and then, someone still plays the lyre. A schoolboy. A farmer's daughter. An old widow on her rooftop at dusk. The sound is always different, but always familiar. Because your music was never just strings and resonance. It was the echo of everything you learned. Everything you lost. You walk alone some nights. No entourage. No glowing aura. Just you. And your music. Sometimes, you sit by a stream and listen. Not to your own song, but to what the world has done with it. And that's enough. Because gods fade. But the lyre sings on. Music has always changed, but lately, it's changing without you. Mortals are inventing new instruments now, some of them beautiful, others deeply questionable. They're stretching animal skins over hollow wood. They're hammering strings, blowing into conch shells, even drumming on pots. Some are making sounds you can't even identify, like a donkey caught in a wind tunnel. You've gone from sole patron of music to, well, an inspiration. An influence. At first, it stings. You, Apollo, god of harmony, are used to being the center of the stage, not the faded inscription in the corner of the playbill. But you keep listening. Because even if you don't recognize everything they play, you still feel it. And you realize something strange: there's beauty in the chaos. A group of boys slap sticks on rocks and shout in rhythm. A woman sings to her child while grinding grain. A man in a cramped shop hums a tune while carving bone flutes. None of them know your name. But all of them are keeping your legacy alive in their own clumsy, brilliant way. You start to wonder, what did ancient music really sound like? Not your divine melodies, no. You mean theirs. The mortals. The ones who had no words for harmony, no theories, no scales. Just instinct. Bone. Breath. Historians still argue about it. Some think early Greek music was rigid, built entirely on mathematics and modes. Others believe it was more fluid, more improvisational, based on oral traditions now lost to time. A few even claim Apollo, taught them everything directly, which feels generous but flattering. You sit quietly in Delphi, listening to an old man pluck a three-stringed lyre. He's not trained. He misses more notes than he hits. But the intention is there. His fingers fumble a prayer. His voice cracks with hope. You feel the same chill you used to feel when playing for Hyacinthus beneath the cypress. Music is evolving. Mortals are writing it down now. That's new. Papyrus scrolls with dots and lines. Early notation systems. No longer just memory and tradition, but symbols. It makes you feel oddly proud. Because here's the thing, immortality isn't about living forever. It's about being carried forward. And music carries you. You stroll through an amphitheater in Athens, where a tragic play is being performed. The chorus sings in Dorian mode, rigid, formal, almost military. You nod. They're following rules now. Your rules. Your influence lingers in every sharp syllable. And yet, a flute breaks the rhythm. Just slightly. The player, a young girl in a too large tunic, closes her eyes. She holds a note a little too long. The crowd leans forward, confused and delighted. It's not what they expected. It's better. You smile. Mainstream historical fact: ancient Greek music used specific modes, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, each believed to evoke a particular mood. Plato and Aristotle debated which ones were moral. Music, for them, wasn't entertainment. It was character shaping. You start wandering more after that. You leave Delphi behind for a while, drift through towns and cities. You hear temple choirs, shepherd ballads, lullabies, harvest chants. Some use your lyre. Others use shells, reeds, drums. Some don't use instruments at all, just clapping and breath and laughter. One child sings a song about stars. You listen closely. She doesn't know she's singing about Lyre, your lyre in the sky. But there it is, in her tune. You realize you don't need to correct her. She doesn't need to know the myth. She's made the story her own. Fringe tidbit: one rare archaeological find included a hymn engraved on a stone, complete with notation. Scholars have tried to reconstruct the melody, but it's incomplete. Faded. Full of pauses. Still, when played, it sounds eerily familiar. Almost divine. You start leaving songs behind, like breadcrumbs. You hum into empty caves. Whistle through reeds. Strum once and walk away. Sometimes, centuries later, someone finds them, half melodies carved into cave walls, old chants embedded in lullabies. They don't know where the music came from. But they feel it. You don't need to be seen anymore. Just heard. Because you're not just the god of music. You're the whisper in the wind before the first note. The quiet between the drum beats. The reason people sing at all. Eventually, you stop walking. Not because you're tired, gods don't really tire, but because you've heard enough to know the world will go on without your constant supervision. You settle on a high hill somewhere between memory and myth, where mortals rarely climb and the wind always knows your name. From up here, you listen. Not to the old lyre songs, not the polished hymns of temples or the regal harmonies sung by chorus lines in golden masks. You listen to what's become of your legacy. It's messy now. And wonderful. Someone is trying to play a love song using water jugs. Someone else is humming while crushing olives with their feet. A little boy is plucking horse hairs strung across a bent stick, producing noises that could summon either spirits or nightmares, unclear. It's imperfect, dissonant, experimental. And it's alive. You sit, cross-legged, lyre across your lap, strings faded and worn from centuries of devotion. You pluck once. The note wavers. You pluck again. And it doesn't matter that the sound isn't pure, because it's real. You start to wonder about Olympus. You haven't been there in some time. No reason, really. Just, it feels too still. Too polished. The kind of place where music gets trapped in marble halls and echo chambers. Down here, on this little hill, the notes still have dirt on them. And that's how you like it. You look to the sky. Your lyre glows faintly overhead, Lyra anchored by Vega, the bright blue star that even mortals still know by name. They look up and make wishes on it, not realizing they're whispering to you. Mainstream historical fact. Vega, the main star in Lyra, has been significant across cultures for millennia. In Chinese mythology, it's one of the lovers in the Qixi festival. In Arabic astronomy, it was the falling eagle. But in Greek myth, it's your crown jewel. Your mind drifts, soft and slow, back through the long line of music. You remember Orpheus, your most devoted follower. You remember how he played your lyre to charm the underworld, to plead for his love, Eurydice. He almost made it. Almost. You remember how the muses took pity on him, scattered his songs across the earth. You remember how the Thracians tore him apart, not out of hatred, but perhaps because his music knew too much. Fringe tidbit, some versions claim Orpheus's lyre was the one placed in the sky your lyre passed down, broken by grief, then immortalized. Whether that's true or not, it's poetic. And isn't that the point? You pluck again. The strings hum against your fingertips. Each vibration feels like a memory. Marsyas' wild flute. Pan's sorrowful syrinx. Hyacinthus' last breath. Cyrene's laughter under stars. Charona's silence. Asclepius' first cry. The scattered fragments of your music float through you like leaves caught in a slow breeze. You are not the same Apollo who first stared at that turtle on a dusty road. Back then, you thought music was about control. About beauty, about rightness. Now, you know it's about presence. About letting go. You lie back in the grass, arms behind your head. You play one more song, not for anyone. Just to send it up, into the sky, or it might drift past Vega and echo gently through the constellation. The stars shimmer in response. You don't smile. Not exactly. You just breathe. And listen. And let the music go where it wants to. Because now, the world doesn't need you to teach music. It just needs you to keep playing. The air tonight is soft. Not still, there's always a breeze up here. But softer than usual. As if even the wind is winding down, tiptoeing around your hilltop perch so it doesn't disturb the last few notes you've played. You're alone. And it's not lonely. You, Apollo, god of music, god of prophecy, god of light and far too many tragic crushes, lie beneath a sky you filled with songs. The lyre beside you is quiet, though not asleep. It hums faintly, like a resting heart still tuned to something bigger than you. Below, the world turns. Mortals laugh, love, cry, die, and in between it all, they sing. It never stops. You can hear the notes rising from cities, drifting over waves, hidden in the rustle of vines in moonlight. Some play your lyre. Some whistle reed flutes, or clap hands, or bang pots until someone threatens them with a broom. And you love all of it. You don't need temples anymore. You don't need marble statues or golden offerings. You don't need to be remembered. Because you are, in every single moment a human mouth opens not to speak, but to sing. Your constellation pulses gently above. Lyre. A shape. A symbol. A story too old and too new to ever really be told right. You wonder, briefly, how many mortals look up at it and wonder why a lyre hangs in the heavens. You hope they make up their own versions. You'd like that. Because that's what music is now, 1,000 wrong stories all leading to the same right feeling. And that's where we leave you. On your back. Eyes skyward. Fingers resting on strings you don't need to pluck anymore, because the world is doing it for you now. The gods no longer gather for concerts in Olympus. But in the soft clatter of cups in kitchens, in dusty market chants, in awkward teenage serenades and lullabies hummed over cribs, you're still there. Mainstream historical fact, even today, lyres are still played. Reconstructed. Revered. There are musicians, scholars, even engineers, who dedicate their lives to rebuilding the sound of ancient Greece, trying to hear what the gods once heard. Trying to touch what you left behind. Fringe tidbit: a few researchers once claimed that the specific vibration of lyre strings could sync with brainwaves and induce trance states. No one could replicate the findings. But you smile, because, of course, they couldn't. Only you know how deep those strings really go. Now the night deepens. The sky shifts from indigo to velvet. And you begin to rest. Not because you're tired. Gods don't sleep the way mortals do. But you ease into stillness, let your mind float like a note released into open air. The lyre at your side breathes with you. The stars hold you gently. And somewhere, just faintly, a child begins to sing. Wind down, approximate 300 words, and now, the lyre is quiet. The stars blink slowly above that high hill. The night has softened every edge. Cooled the marble, hushed the birds, let the olive leaves stop rustling. Everything breathes a little easier now. You don't need to follow Apollo anymore. You've walked the dusty roads with him, sat beside his heartbreak, laughed under fig trees, and strummed melodies under stars. You've seen what the myths don't always say, that even gods long for understanding, and that even the wildest songs begin with silence. So wherever you are right now, whether curled beneath covers or just blinking at the ceiling, let this be your stillness. Let your thoughts fade like the last vibration of a plucked string. Let your body rest like an ancient temple cooled by sea wind. Let your breath slow to match the rise and fall of distant lyre chords drifting through the cosmos. You don't have to hold anything. You don't have to chase meaning. You don't even have to remember every note. Just be here. In this hush. This gentle, gold-tinged silence at the edge of sleep. Because that's where Apollo is now, too. And his music? It's still playing. Not in the sky. Not in Olympus. Headphone a gentle night on Olympus full-length story script, calm, slow-paced, dreamy tone. There are nights when you don't need a hero. No epic quests. No thunderous battles or fiery destinies. Just a soft story. One that drifts like steam from warm tea, like the edges of a dream. So tonight, let me take you up, not to the Olympus of power and thunder, but to the quieter corners of the heavens. Where the gods slow down, take off their sandals, and finally let themselves be human. We begin with Zeus. Tonight, he's writing a letter. Not to a mortal. Not to the stars. But to himself. A time-off request. Dear Lord Zeus, he writes, I, Zeus, respectfully request a 3-day leave, due to unstable thundercloud emotions. And who approves it? Hera. She signs it immediately, adding a single line, approved. No thunder allowed. So Zeus puts down his scepter. The sky's clear. And for 3 whole days, he goes camping in the low clouds. Roasting corn with lightning bolts. Playing cards with himself. Wearing a raincoat printed with his own face. The other gods agree, he's never looked happier. A little farther on, we find the hearth of Hestia. It's her birthday. No cakes. No party hats. Just a massive pot of sweet porridge, bubbling over sacred fire. The scent drifts far, so far it reaches the ocean. Poseidon arrives first, holding a spoon made of coral. Hermes sneaks in with a stolen porcelain bowl just for better presentation. And Dionysus? He shows up late, wobbly, and pours wine into the pot. This, he declares, is god-tier dessert. And thus, the legendary Olympus cocktail porridge is born. Sweet. Warm. Slightly dizzying. Next, we peek in on the 9 muses. Today, they're all sick. Sniffling. Groaning. Completely uninspired. Apollo panics. Mortals down below are writing terrible poetry. Painters are drawing people with 3 ears. So Apollo brings them a special lyre, crafted from honeycomb, butterfly wings, and a single beautiful dream. But he doesn't play it. He simply sets it down, and lets it release its scent. The muses sneeze. Then sigh. Then fall into a peaceful sleep. And when they wake, the first words they whisper drift down as soft white clouds. That night, all Olympus gathers for the autumn fair. No shops. No selling. Just gods showing off their oddest talents. Artemis brings dancing deer. Ares shoots arrows made of carrots. Athena hosts a booth of ancient riddles that makes your head spin. Apollo plays music with fallen leaves. Hermes wins every game by cheating, obviously. Dionysus falls asleep in a barrel of fermenting grapes. When he wakes, he shouts, I dreamed. I was a grape. Later, under a quiet moon, a new challenge is declared, the Dream Poetry Contest. Rules, say something poetic. While asleep. Apollo mutters, moonlight leans like a plucked string. Athena sighs, truth is a stubborn pillow. Hermes mumbles, who stole my dream? I was saving the cake. The winner? Hestia's cat. It purred in perfect haiku rhythm. Prize? A crown made of honey toast crust. As the night stretches deeper, Apollo finds a quiet hilltop. No audience. No altar. Just him, the stars, and a purring cat in his lap. He doesn't play the lyre. Not yet. The cat reaches out a paw, brushes a string. A single note floats into the air, thin as silk. Apollo looks up at the constellation Lyra, his lyre, now immortalized among the stars. Still glowing. He doesn't strum again. Just lets his hand rest. Lets the wind play for him. Because music, he's learned, isn't in perfect performances. It's in the tiny moments, the rustle of leaves, the soft baa of a goat, a muse's sneeze, and someone listening. Maybe you. Right now. So, if you're still awake, close your eyes. Let yourself drift. Slow your breath with the rhythm of starlight. Let Olympus lull you. Not with lightning. Not with fate. But with the little things that even gods cherish. A spoonful of porridge. A sleepy cat. A quiet song. And one last story. Just for you. Sleep well. We'll meet again when the moon rises. A lazy morning on Olympus. Full story script, calm, seamless, and gentle for sleepy audio narration. The sun didn't rise on time this morning. Not because the earth stopped spinning, but because Apollo overslept. Last night, he played his lyre into the clouds, soft golden notes that shimmered like fading stars. He fell asleep mid-chord, cradling his lyre on his chest, a sleepy temple cat curled up on his head like a crown. The sun waited patiently. Then impatiently. And finally decided to rise on its own, climbing the sky with the awkward grace of a student arriving late without homework. Light came slowly, slipping past olive leaves and across distant rooftops, while one sleeping god still dreamed of melody. Elsewhere, Hermes was already awake. Not out of duty, just out of hunger. Seeing that everyone was still asleep, he opened a floating coffee stand mid-sky. He called it Morning Flight. First customer. A passing breeze, who ordered iced wind, no sugar. Then came Artemis's deer, and Athena's owl. Hermes brewed espresso with the speed of light, frothed milk with a whisper, and drew lightning bolts in the foam. Everyone who sipped it spoke twice as fast afterward. Zeus descended from the clouds, frowning. What exactly is in this drink? Hermes grinned. Just 2 beans, a splash of mischief, and 1 generous scoop of overconfidence. Tuesdays are usually kneading days on Olympus. The gods gather to discuss rain, harvests, dream policy, and the occasional missing cat. But today, no one arrived on time. Athena was trying to remember a philosophical question she lost in her dream. Artemis had wandered into a misty forest. Poseidon was busy untangling his seaweed curls. He'd scratched his scalp with coral the night before. Apollo eventually showed up, carrying his lyre like a pillow. Dionysus arrived just in time. With a glass of what he claimed was lemonade, but clearly wasn't. The meeting lasted 4 minutes. One agenda item: should we postpone to tomorrow? Unanimous vote, yes. Later, Athena suggested morning yoga. On clouds. With lavender mist and Harris-scented oils. Zeus attempted a standing pose with thunderbolt balance. Apollo meditated by strumming a single, never-ending chord. Hermes floated in spirals, claiming it was the soaring eagle twist. Ares tried the warrior pose and drew an actual sword. Dionysus fell asleep on his mat, whispering great. No one remembered the exact poses. But everyone left lighter, mostly from laughing too hard. When the sun reached its highest point, Apollo discovered an old scroll in his music chest, a melody with no title. Only one instruction: play only when the sun smiles. He looked up. The sun seemed amused. So he strummed a note. Just one. No sound came. But the wind stilled. Leaves paused mid-fall. Hestia's cat opened one eye, then went back to sleep. No music. Just presence. Apollo smiled softly. Not every song needs to be heard, he whispered. Some are meant to be felt. On Olympus, the morning passed slowly. No rushing. No pressure to be divine. Just gods lounging on clouds, unanswered questions floating by, and unfinished songs resting on fingertips. And yet, the world continued just fine. If you've made it this far, still listening, still breathing, perhaps half asleep, then maybe, in your own way, you too are sharing a morning, a little like the gods. No urgency. No need to be perfect. Just being. Just here. Just breathing. Because somewhere, above the clouds, even the immortals, are sleeping in a little longer today. Wishing you a beautifully lazy morning. Soft. Simple. And just dreamy enough to return to. In your sleep. A Leisurely Afternoon on Olympus Part 3, a continuous 30-minute bedtime story in gentle, poetic prose. The afternoon light drapes across Olympus like warm honey. Everything is slower now. The clouds move with a sigh. Even time seems to sit down for a while. There's no wind. No thunder. Just a kind of golden hush that invites even the gods to do nothing in particular. Zeus is napping. His head tilted back, mouth slightly open, snoring softly into a breeze that doesn't dare wake him. His thunderbolt rests beside him, propped against a cloud like a walking stick. Occasionally it lets off a tiny spark, a dream twitch, perhaps. Hera is reading. She turns the pages with the grace of someone who has ruled for centuries but still enjoys a love poem written on parchment. A dove perches on her shoulder, leaning in to read over her. Hermes is nowhere to be seen. Which means, of course, he's everywhere. He has decided to start a new business. Not coffee this time. He did that in the morning. This time, ice cream. He calls it cloud cream. It melts instantly. Which, he says, is part of the magic. Apollo tastes a scoop and says it reminds him of dreams he hasn't had yet. Hermes grins. You'll have them tomorrow, he replies. Down by the garden terraces, Aphrodite lounges beside a fountain made of rose petals and low, lazy laughter. She hums softly to the koi. They swim in loops, pretending not to be listening. She's not brushing her hair today. Today, she's letting it tangle. Letting it speak in curls and knots. Letting herself not be flawless, just beautiful in the way that sunlight is when it forgets to dazzle. Somewhere near the orchard, Hephaestus is building something. Not for war. Not for show. Just a wind chime. Out of broken swords and dulled golden keys. When it rings, it sounds like a memory being forgiven. Artemis is chasing fireflies. Not to catch them. Just to follow their rhythm, like a child tracking a melody without knowing where it leads. Her feet are bare. She doesn't care that the grass sticks to them. She doesn't care about anything except the glow. Ares, meanwhile, is trying to arm wrestle a tree. No one really knows why. The tree is winning. Dionysus is watching, drinking something green. He says it's grape juice with ambition. He offers some to the tree. The tree declines politely. Apollo sits on a flat stone, his lyre in his lap. He hasn't played since morning. But now, he plucks a string. Just one. Then another. A quiet rhythm builds, not a song exactly, but something like a thought with wings. Athena appears beside him without warning. She's carrying a puzzle box. She doesn't say hello. Just hands it to him. He accepts it. Together, they sit in silence, solving pieces between chords. Every so often, a piece fits. Or a chord does. And they nod, the way only very old friends do. Further up the slope, Hestia is baking. She's made something warm and sweet and entirely impossible to pronounce. But it smells like childhood. Like the moment after a storm passes and everything feels safe again. She doesn't serve it on plates. She simply places it on a blanket and walks away, trusting that the gods will know when to come. And they do. one by one. Not rushed. Not announced. They just arrive. Some bring cups. Others bring nothing. Some speak. Others sit. All of them taste something soft and forget, for a while, that they ever needed to be divine. As the sun begins to lean west, the shadows stretch like yawns. No one moves to end the day. No one mentions duty, prophecy, or fate. Apollo plucks one last string. The note is round and golden. It lands gently in the lap of evening. A lullaby for the dusk. The gods stay where they are, heads tipped toward the sound. Even the sky hushes. Even the stars, still hidden, pause. Because this moment, this ordinary, glowing afternoon, is enough. No battles. No miracles. Just the quiet grace of existence. And if you're listening, somewhere between the notes, you might find your breath has slowed. Your shoulders have dropped. And a part of you has begun to rest. Because this is Olympus as it truly is when no one is looking. And this afternoon? It was always meant for you. Sleep well. Or stay awake. It's all right either way. The gods aren't in a hurry today. And neither are you. An Evening Stroll on Olympus Part 4, a 30-minute continuous bedtime story in soft, poetic, ASMR-style narration. Evening doesn't arrive on Olympus like a door swinging shut. It seeps in. It tucks itself gently into the folds of robes, curls around the ankles of statues, and breathes a little slower than the wind. The sun slips behind the peaks without drama. No farewell. No final bow. Just a quiet nod, as if to say, that was enough light for today. And so begins the slow walk toward night. Apollo has put his lyre away. Not because he's tired, but because even music needs to sleep. He sits, eyes half-lidded, watching the sky change colors like a painter who finally lets the brush rest. Hestia lights the evening lamps. Not all at once. One by one. She carries fire the way others carry lullabies. She hums, and the flames answer, small, golden, unhurried. Aphrodite wraps herself in a shawl made of breeze. Her feet are bare. She doesn't walk. She drifts. Sometimes she stops to look at the way shadows fold around things, as if beauty is simply what softens when the light fades. Hermes, ever restless, walks beside her. He's slower now. His steps quieter. Instead of talking, he listens. To the hum of stars warming up behind the veil of dusk. To the rustle of Artemis's arrows as she prepares her midnight patrol. She appears briefly. A blur of silver and resolve. She nods to no one in particular, then vanishes into trees that seem to bow out of her way. Athena is still reading. But now by starlight. She doesn't need a candle. The words glow for her, because they know she will take them seriously. Zeus and Hera sit in silence, not the cold kind, but the kind built from years of knowing that some things are best left unsaid, and some evenings are better shared without speech. Ares finally admits he's tired. He sits. Not in armor, but in a tunic that smells faintly of cedar in time. He watches the fireflies like they're sparks from a story he hasn't heard yet. Dionysus hums a tune that no one can name. It's not a song. It's a shape. A drifting mood. He pours wine into the grass. Not as an offering, but as a thank you. Poseidon isn't here tonight. But the fountain ripples in a rhythm that feels like laughter in deep water. He's always listening, even when he's far. Clouds roll in, slow and low. Not storm clouds. just clouds that want to be near. Hestia's lamps flicker. Hermes gathers the last of the breeze and ties it into a ribbon around his wrist. A single owl hoots. And that, somehow, feels like the official beginning of night. Someone, maybe Apollo, maybe the wind, whispers, "Let's walk." So they do. Not as gods. Not as myths. But simply as beings who have done enough for one day. They walk in pairs. Some in silence. Some trading thoughts like shells on a beach. Artemis returns, her quiver empty, but her heart full. She joins the others. They walk beneath constellations they helped invent. They walk by streams that remember when the world was young. They walk through shadows and starlight as if both were equally sacred. There are no miracles tonight. No grand gestures. Just the soft sound of sandals on ancient stone. And breath. And sky. When they return, no one says goodnight. They don't need to. The lamps are still burning. The wind has curled into sleep. The stars have all taken their places. Apollo touches the edge of his lyre, but does not play. Instead, he smiles. And lets the silence sing. May your evening be just as soft. Just as sacred. Just as gently whole. The night does not ask anything of you. It only wants to walk beside you. Sleep, if you wish. Or stay a while, listening to the sky breathe. We'll walk again soon. Part 5, Midnight on Olympus. A soft, seamless 30-minute bedtime story told in gentle poetic prose. It is now midnight on Olympus. Not loud. Not grand. Just deep. The kind of deep that comes only after everything else has fallen quiet. The kind of stillness that wraps itself around your shoulders like a well-loved blanket. The kind that doesn't announce itself, it just is. Even the stars are quieter now. They don't twinkle. They breathe. And down below, so do the gods. Apollo is dreaming. Not of music, for once. But of the color of silence. Of moonlight poured into a silver bowl. Of the hush between two notes that almost became a melody but chose, instead, to remain a secret. His lyre rests beside him, untouched. But not unloved. It hums faintly, a lullaby only the stars can hear. Hestia is still awake. Of course she is. Someone has to keep the hearth warm, even in dreams. She's seated beside the last lamp, its flame flickering not from wind, but from the slow inhale of night itself. She's not knitting. Not baking. Not even thinking. Just being, the way only she can be. Hermes is dreaming in movement. His body still, but his mind wandering through strange cities, tucking dreams into strangers' pockets like little notes they'll never know who wrote. He smiles in his sleep. No one sees it, but the breeze does. Artemis walks under the stars. Not because she has to. Because she wants to. The moonlight belongs to her, but she never takes it for granted. Each hoofprint of her deer glows for a second, then fades. She doesn't chase. She doesn't hunt. She simply follows the rhythm of the forest as it whispers lullabies through trees. Dionysus is, somehow, both snoring and composing a love poem. He mumbles phrases like vine-hearted starlight and grapes made of kisses. It makes no sense. It's perfect. Aphrodite sleeps with a seashell beneath her pillow. Not because it's soft, but because it sings. A song only she can hear. One she once whispered to the ocean, and the ocean remembered. Zeus dreams of thunderclouds that forget how to strike. Just drift. Just rain gently. Hera's hand rests on his chest. No lightning tonight. Just the steady sound of shared sleep. Athena doesn't sleep often. But when she does, she dreams in structure. Not walls, but possibilities. She sees the architecture of kindness. The scaffolding of ideas not yet spoken. And in her dream, even questions feel soft. Ares is asleep. Not guarding anything. Not bracing. Just breathing. He's wrapped in a blanket stitched by someone who knew he wouldn't ask for one. Even Hephaestus has stopped working. His tools are asleep too. The forge ember glows gently like a nightlight for iron. Poseidon has not surfaced. But somewhere in the sea, a wave curls without breaking, and a fish sings, and salt drifts slowly through a coral reef that glows like a prayer. All of Olympus has exhaled. There is no prophecy now. No quest. No triumph or tragedy. Just midnight. The kind of midnight that makes you forget what time is. And remember what being feels like. A small owl hoots once, not as a warning, but as punctuation. Apollo stirs, but doesn't wake. He turns, breathes out through his nose, and the stars ripple slightly, like a harp string tuned by sleep. Nothing more needs to happen. Nothing more needs to be said. Even the air knows to hold still. Even the gods, ageless, bright, immense, have become small tonight. Not diminished. Just human enough to rest. And you, dear listener, you're here, too. Floating between their dreams. Wrapped in the same quiet. Cradled by the same sky. This night isn't about falling asleep. It's about being allowed to stop trying for a little while. The gods understand. Tonight, they are not watching. They are beside you, in the same darkness, breathing the same hush. And when morning comes, they will rise again. But for now, let them sleep. Let you sleep. Let everything simply be. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Sleep like Olympus does, when even the divine lets go.